This is the Lutheran Education Podcast, a bi-weekly podcast where we explore issues, trends, and events surrounding Christian education with your hosts, Richard Schumacher, Senior Director of Operations at LSCM, and Dr. Tracy Salgado, Director of Special Education at LSCM.
Welcome to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. My name is Richard Schumacher. I'm the Senior Director of Operations and your host for today's episode. And we are excited to bring on Glenn Rollins. He works with Set Apart to Serve for the LCMS. Glenn, how you doing?
Doing great. Good morning and glad to be here. So good to talk.
All right, glad to have you as well. Forgot to ask, I guess, before we got started, what is your role, your title with Set Apart to Serve?
Set Apart to Serve is actually housed within the Office of Pastoral Education at Synod. And for Set Apart to Serve, this culture changing, culture building initiative that we're working on, it is, I'm a manager with them. But there's really only three of us that are working on this. So it's not like manager over hundreds and thousands of people. It's just the title that they gave me, but it gives me a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things across Synod for the whole idea of finding out those who are set apart to serve.
All right. And as a church worker, we've all got that second degree of separation from everybody else within Synod because we're either related or went to a Concordia with somebody once upon a time. So we like to start by just getting that out of the way. So tell us a little bit about yourself, where you hail from, your educational journey, where you have served at, and what has led you here to working with Synod on this project.
Okay. Well, that could take a good bit of time.
It often does.
I grew up in Colorado, a couple different places in Colorado. Younger years, mostly in the Denver area. So that's where home was. But after early in high school, we moved to Southeast Colorado, a little small town of 400 people, and that was really good to kind of be in a smaller setting. With that, a pastor there really was instrumental in getting me to think about going to a Concordia. And there had been a mention by another pastor when I was in confirmation a few years earlier, but this pastor even went so far as to bring somebody from Concordia Seward down to Little Wiley, Colorado, to talk to me. And so while I was kind of thinking I'd go somewhere in state in Colorado, Pastor really helped me see that I could do some things in church work. I think he wanted me to become a pastor, and I kind of faked him out and stayed in the education track. But that's what happened. In 1975, graduated high school and went to Concordia Seward, and it was a wonderful time. I look back on it. I'm just so thankful for that. I've had opportunities to talk about it in other venues, and it was a good time. I was involved in cross country and track. Learning that I wanted to be a coach helped to kind of move me towards the idea of education, and that was really. I wasn't quite sure when I went to Seward, but that was one of the things that, hey, you'd get a chance to be a coach if you also did teaching. Early on, not really understanding okay, it's almost sometimes a lot easier to coach. I know not in today's world necessarily, but in those days, a lot easier to coach than all the things that went into teaching. So graduated from there in 79. Also met my wife there, and we got married in 1979 as well. My first call was out to Southern California and to a little grade school there. I was trained for secondary, and there were too many secondary social studies teachers, I guess, that year, and so Somebody said we were a dime a dozen. I don't want to put it that way, but there definitely were not as many positions open. But the Lord has His way, and He took me out to Southern California to this little grade school, which was connected to a Lutheran high school. That the way it ended up is the social studies slash track coach, teacher coach. He decided that he didn't want to be part of the school anymore at the Pacific Southwest District Conference, which is held at around Thanksgiving time each year. And so he quit right then. And my boss, he's with the Lord now. He said, "That's why the Lord brought you here. We started you out at the Lutheran grade school, and now you're going to go to Lutheran High." And that was in Laverne, California, so suburban LA. So I was at Laverne Lutheran. It was kind of funny. We actually I graduated, went to California. We got married in December, and in January I started at the Lutheran High School. So, there's that book that talks about all the changes that happen to you and how difficult that is. They all happen in a short period of time for us with that. But was out there for 3 years. Went to LA Lutheran for a year, and then got a call back to Colorado. So I was really excited to be back into the Denver area there. So I worked at Lutheran High School, Denver Lutheran High School, and spent time there. Didn't end the way I wanted it. Wasn't a good fit as I thought, and so I was out of Lutheran teaching for a couple of years. And then the way the Lord works, He again got me back into it. And I actually was in the St. Louis area at a little grade school that was connected with Lutheran North in St. Louis. So I spent a couple years there. Again, the Lord had another Lutheran high school for me to go to, and took a call to Minneapolis Lutheran. And our family is growing during this time, and my wife is from Wisconsin, so she was glad to be, closer back to that area, not too far. But we were at Minneapolis Lutheran, and during the time that we were at Minneapolis Lutheran, teaching and coaching, I also determined that I wanted to go into administration. I don't know what happened. I don't know how I got to that point. I don't know. The Lord was doing His thing. I think part of it was that there were five different administrators in the 6 years I was at Minneapolis Lutheran. And
Oh, wow.
so it kind of looked to me like almost anybody could be an administrator. So I decided to go that route. Sorry for any administrators out there. But I went to the University of Minnesota, got my admin degree, and actually the principal who was there, my last year there, he decided to take a call, and everybody was saying, "Hey, you need to stay and be a principal here." And I had just accepted a call, and so I went to Luther East High School in Lansing, Illinois. That was my first principalship. Was learned an awful lot. That all of our times are about learning, right?
Sure.
And in every area there, learned a lot. Learned that I had some good things that we could put together for the future. We were getting ready to actually build a new school. It had been in an old 1950s grade school, and just a kind of really different setting. But at a certain point in time, because there was a faction that said, "Let's build in Indiana instead of Illinois," caused some issues. And about that time, Kevin Dunning at Faith in Las Vegas and I were talking about what about Las Vegas. And so I went out to Faith in Las Vegas during, Faith in Las Vegas, if you're aware of it, has had tremendous growth for years and years and years. When I got out there, there were just around 400 students in the high school. And when I left, there was over 700. And again, learning more. Our sons were, in grade school and middle school, high school, going to college. Just an amazing season for us. But one of the things that I learned there is that the size and the growth, it wasn't a Glenn Rollins thing. It was because we had great teachers, amazing facility, and people who were motivated to be in the what for many of them was a private school setting, but for us was a place to share the gospel, of course. One of the things I learned there, which connects up with you, is I was principal of high school. Uh, Jan Dolinger, who is now Iowa East
Yeah.
education exec, she was the principal of the middle school, and she had an amazing heart about special needs, and we had not done anything about special needs at Faith, but she brought that on, and she got that started before she got married, and then came on back to Iowa. But that was where I first started to understand the importance of that in what a Lutheran school setting should have. And we may have talked about that actually long ago when we first met, but I'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But anyway, at Faith Las Vegas, amazing growth. It's different to be at a really super big Lutheran school. And that was one of my challenges is, I couldn't get to know all the kids' names. The schools before that had been of a size where you got to know pretty much everybody in your community. And when there's 700 kids, that's a lot. And we had uniforms, and I'm not commenting on them good or bad, but it's sometimes even harder to get to know them because of they all kind of look alike with the certain colors that you can only wear.
Mhm.
So couldn't get to know their families as well. So we were there for 7 years, from 2000 to 2007. Again, thankful. It was amazing. But we also determined that we wanted to get back to the Midwest. So, and it's also really hot there. I don't know if you know that. And it's just at times when I talk to people about that, they're like, "Yeah, we know that." I said, "Yeah, but do you know that in the summer, when you think it's going to cool down, it goes like to 90. That's the low for the day. So it's a different place.
Yeah.
But I'm very thankful that I had the opportunity to be there and to grow as a Lutheran school leader there. Went to what was Minneapolis Lutheran. It had been merged with the Concordia Academy system there. And so I was at Concordia Academy for a couple of years. There were some financial issues there that I wish I had known about. Was a challenge, and we tried to get another little small school going. So there was a challenging time there after Concordia Academy in Minneapolis, or actually it was in Bloomington, Minnesota. Um, was in Iowa for a few years at Valley Lutheran in Cedar Falls. That was a K to 12. Again, wonderful opportunity to grow. And then the Lord, for my last principalship, called me to Springfield Lutheran High School in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois. And that's where I got to learn about Lutheran special education ministries, the work there, but also was involved with some big changes in a lot of positive ways for the school. There's a building program, there's a curriculum update, faculty reorganization, all kinds of things there. Um, and also bringing on somebody from Lutheran Special Education Ministries to help us with the work that we were doing there. Probably it was when I was in Iowa, smaller school, and I had to replace a couple of teachers. So this was in the 2010s that it really started to become noticeable. We were trying to get a music person, and I couldn't find anybody at any of our Concordias. There are a couple there, but they were quickly going to some of the larger schools. And we were a high school at that point. The high school was about 70 or 80 people. The grade school was bigger. Grade schools usually are in those settings, and it it was just starting to kind of really come into my consciousness that how are we going to keep this going? Where we've got to have the right number, the critical mass of Lutheran school teachers. And so Started asking around, like, are we doing anything about that? Have we thought about that? There had been a couple of synodical programs, I think in the early 2000s. There was some talk about that, but there was not anything out there that was done with an intentionality of recognizing we need to get, from my perspective, more teachers. And so contacting through going to different conferences. I belong to the ALSS, the Association of Lutheran Secondary Schools, and you go to conference and you say, "Hey, how about are you guys doing? What's going on?" Talking to our leaders at the Concordias, and they had, they can still now, right now, see the changes in what happened with the numbers in that 2010s time when it really started to do the drop off. But nobody really had any answers or, as I said, any kind of intentionality. But that's when I really started talking about that. And I kept bringing that up no matter where the Lord had me is, what are we doing? How are we going to answer this challenge that we have to find Lutheran school teachers? And I didn't know that it was done in, you could see it in with the number of pastors that were needed, and the same in the other vocations as well. So really in the early 2010s is when I started to really feel it and was conscious of what can we do, and began, it was probably bothering people. I just thought it was questioning and asking questions whenever I would go and talk with these leaders there. So that's actually the genesis of my wondering, what are we going to do to make sure that we have enough Lutheran school teachers for our schools. When I was at Springfield, and don't tell anybody, I know this is going to be out there for the public, but I didn't really follow the conventions a lot. But in 2019, that is when there was a resolution that we did need to have some kind of a program, some kind of an initiative, some kind of something that was very intentional about that. So, I'm doing my thing in Springfield at the Lutheran High School, the different aspects of growing that ministry. And at the same time, this initiative, there was this resolution, I'm sorry, at Synod, uh, put this forth. It landed, and I'm not sure of how it ended up in the pastoral education office with Pastor James Bonnick, but he was the leader, and he started out, with some very basic things, getting research, what's going on across Synod in this area, getting information about what people are doing or aren't doing about it, uh, and then starting to put together some small groups that would talk about, well, how is this impacting you? Are there things that you're doing? Are there things that you're seeing to increase that? And I think because I had, quite honestly, again, been talking about it in a lot of different places, my name came up as somebody who might want to be part of a small group of educators who were talking about what can we do about this. And so that was, I think 2021 is when I was contacted about being involved with that. And it went, and again, during this time, we're right in the middle of COVID in 2021. The state of Illinois allowed us to have school, and so it was an interesting time, as we all remember.
Yeah.
But the things that we're able to do by having school was a blessing. Had this going on, but at the same time, starting to get some interactions with Pastor Bonnick, and Set Apart to Serve got its name during that time. And it just got to a point where I kept saying, well, have you thought about going to this? Have you thought about using this area? And with my connections, maybe it's because I was living in so many different places and so many zip codes, and some working at so many different districts and Lutheran schools. I was blessed to have some of those connections. That's when it started to click with Pastor Bonnick that maybe the life experiences, the ministry experiences that I had would be something that could be used for Set Apart to Serve when they got to the point of adding on a full-time person. So kind of ironically, as he's working that through, I'm talking with people of, maybe we need to find somebody from the outside who can financially support there being a person who works on church worker recruitment. I just saw the need. But the Lord had His plan, and His plan was, no, we're putting in this program called Set Apart to Serve. It's going to be more comprehensive than anybody could ever believe, and so in the late spring of 2022, I received a call to be at the Set Apart to Serve, to be the manager of Set Apart to Serve. And so it was one of those things, the way that it goes through Synod is it kind of has to go through a couple of different things and finally through the board of directors. And that takes a while. So actually, it wasn't until May that I got the call. And so then I accepted. And although I knew I was up for the call and my board knew it, had to kind of keep it quiet. It's one of those things you just don't talk about. And so that was a little bit sad in that I had to kind of sit on that. Got the call it was like the last week of May, and then accepted it. But school was done at that point, so I didn't get to really have that closure in that regard. But just a side story, and I think you know this. Just as that was all happening, and I had accepted the call, like days later, Springfield Lutheran High School in Illinois went through its terrible time of having a underground coal mine uh, start to disintegrate, and the school sat right on top of that, and so the school sunk down to the point where the school had to be ultimately condemned and razed. Now, Springfield Lutheran High School still continues on in a leased building, but they're getting ready to build again, nowhere near any mine shafts, I know. But they are that was kind of tumultuous as well with everything that went on, and very, very thankful for the work that my uh, assistant principal and the administrative assistant did to keep things going on. But that was just kind of a crazy time with me accepting the call, and then everything just kind of truly fell apart at Springfield Lutheran there. But as we know, the ministry goes on, and the word does not come back void. So that is the long version. No, it's actually, sorry, that's the short version of things that go on to get me to Set Apart to Serve. Um, Questions did you have out of that, or anything that you want to click?
Well, it's obvious again, and you mentioned it. God always prepares us for the next thing, and we oftentimes have no idea what he's preparing us for. In hindsight, we can see it from time to time, but
Right.
there's even times where we may not know it, and 2, 3 generations later, it might become obvious that an event took place to bring us to a place for God to do what he does. And I agree with you. I think it's obvious that the many locations where you've been, the many experiences you've had, big school, small school, financially strong school, financially struggling school, personalities that you've encountered, all those different things. Gave you a pretty broad perspective of what ministry is, both on the good side and the sometimes not so good side of things. But I think that I see benefit from having all of those experiences. I'm wondering, Glenn, what do you see in terms of if you could say a couple of things from all of that experience that help you to be effective in this role? What would you consider those to be?
I think you hit upon it. There is that there were such a variety of different experiences. There's no doubt that played a part, or plays a part in it, because just from the very basic of how do we'll talk about, well, what if we do want to do this or we want to do that, and I'm able to look at it from both a small school and a large school perspective, and something as simple as the consulting work that we group that we work with wanted to have meetings with principals at a certain time. And like I said, it's as simple as, well, then we need to avoid the mornings because more often than not, there's going to be a chapel service in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So let's think about moving to the afternoons. And those are just small things that you gain the experience of over time. And you know that when you go through that, then it's easier to help negotiate when you have certain areas like that. Getting to know how to deal with different people, working within our synod with different groups, with how that works with district versus the variances in the schools. All of those things were part of it. Some of it, I would say, is probably a patience, in seeing that the changes aren't going to happen overnight. We didn't get into this situation where we are struggling to have enough teachers, enough DCEs, enough church musicians, enough pastors overnight. This is something that, however you want to say it happened, it's been something that's been happening over 2 or 3 or 4 decades.
Yeah.
And it's not going to take, hey, we've got it taken care of overnight. There's going to be a lot of work. And that's why our purpose is pretty strong. We're looking at how we can form and recruit definitely boys for preaching and teaching the word as pastors, but also boys and girls to teach and share the word as commissioned ministers. That's what we're looking to do. But more than that, and we've really come to see this, is we have to change that culture, grow that culture to be in that mindset of how are we lifting up? How are we identifying? How are we encouraging? How are we helping that next generation of church leaders? And so my experiences have shown me what happens when you are, like I said just a minute ago. There's the blessings of where there's a strong established ministry organization, and that has a tendency to have a magnet effect to bring people in. And then when it's smaller, it's harder to do that. How do we help change cultures so that we're all working together? And I just not to be a spoiler here, but we're starting to see that indeed that the ideas are changing. We are turning. We're getting to the point where we say we're not there. I don't know where that's going to be, but numbers are turning, and numbers are a big indicator for us. This year, there are now this year almost 100 more students in church work programs across Synod than there were last year at this time. So, and that's going to fluctuate some, but besides just this number, we're starting to see that the trend is turning. If you're familiar with Confidex, that is where our church DCEs gather. They have 2 meetings a year. This one that I just went to, Confidex, in December. Bill Schranz, who's placement director of Seward, has kind of over the years gathered up that data for Synod, and he is guardedly optimistic that after looking at years of this data, that we're turning the corner back to the positive there, that we're going to be gaining for a while. So those are things that that's good, but we can't stop there. And so that change of the culture is something that I see. I'm able to take my expertise, my time, my experience, what the Lord has poured into me over years, and be able to find ways to help that happen at as many places as possible, because that's where it happens, on that local level.
Absolutely. Now's probably as good a time as any to take a quick break, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll continue the conversation with Glenn Rollins on the backside here, but for now, you're listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Thank you for listening. If you like what you hear today, please consider sharing our podcast with friends and colleagues in the industry. Again, thank you for listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast.
And welcome back to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries. We're continuing our conversation this morning with Glenn Rollins. He's a manager working with the Set Apart to Serve initiative through Synod, helping to ensure our viability of our churches and schools moving forward by finding those folks who have been called by God to serve in these roles and to help them to see how God is using them in this capacity. Uh, as we prepared for this, Glenn sent me a copy of the annual report from 2025 for Set Apart to Serve, and thank you for that. I mean, it was very eye-opening. I thought I knew quite a bit about what was going on, but there was a lot of stuff in there that I also was learning, and I thought that was great. And if you're listening to the podcast, I would definitely encourage you do a Google search, find that information, learn more about the work that they're doing there. But one thing that I saw that was really interesting, Glenn, was that you guys had not only just reached out to the youngsters considering what they want to do for their vocation, but also you've taken some time to look at adults who are already out in the teaching field and encouraging them to consider making a change from whatever setting they're in to come into our Lutheran schools. And I thought that was really neat, mainly because that's something that we at LSCM, a lot of our hires are in that sort of a setup where we're bringing on a retiring or a soon to be retiring teacher, someone looking for a different setting, and they find our Lutheran schools to be quite to their liking. So tell me a little bit about that component, that thrust, and what kind of success have you had reaching out to folks in teaching fields not currently in a Lutheran setting?
Oh, it's been kind of really interesting to see what's going on with in that area and what we've grown. Uh, a lot of times people think about second career, it's about pastors, but we see it that there are maybe those teachers out there who have put in their whatever that X amount of time is as a public school teacher, and they don't want to leave teaching, but they maybe kind of leave where they're at.
Mhm.
And so there's that opportunity to see if they could get involved with a group, a ministry, an educational ministry that maybe aligns with their values. So we actually started talking about this 2 or 3 years ago, and some of it came out of what was happening in Minnesota South, where the district ed exec there, Sean Martins, was actually going to Lutheran churches, LCMS churches, of course, that did not have a school, and just said, if there's any teachers here who want to talk about what the possibilities are of moving to a Lutheran school setting, I'll be here at Bible class time or whatever it was. And so that was something that was kind of interesting, and we started thinking, how can we reach out to that area? Well, I don't know if this is in the report per se, but we actually have some really good ad programs that are pilot ads where we're working with districts, putting out Facebook ads and getting information from people who might be interested in making that switch from public to parochial to Lutheran schools. And right now there is a pilot program with 4 districts that we are looking at. And there's been this started in January. I'm sorry, started in December, and it goes through the end of January, where ads go out on Facebook. And right now, there's been over 700 responses that the between the different districts. So actually, I have a meeting this afternoon to talk with Nebraska district about how things are going as they look at what do they do to contact or get back in touch with those people and follow up with them. But there's tremendous opportunities, we think, at this point in time to look at those people who made teaching their career. It's their love of vocation, and yet maybe they're looking for a change because of the setting they're in, or just long term, maybe a difference of how they can do that. So those. Those ad programs, like I said, go through January, and we're starting to get data back from them, and it's just been really neat to see the people who are involved. Now, we're doing the follow-up from the last ad program to see how many of those are there. But for a principal to get, at least 6 names that they can contact is amazing compared to sometimes you go through a state venue or go through putting an ad in the paper. But here are people who responded to the idea before, about how they could do it themselves. So we're using today's social media to get out there and find ways to possibly, first of all, get them on staff, and then could they go through colloquy and be part of our roster, but more than that, be part of the church.
Yeah, and again, I live that every day, and it's such a fertile ground for all the reasons you're saying. There's so many other pieces to society, things going on in the world that a lot of our teachers are looking for that place to say, I want to get back to why I wanted to become a teacher in the first place. I
Right.
I used to say that when I was teaching at Concordia with our students here in Ann Arbor. As you get started as a teacher, write down why it is you went into education. Why are you doing this? What are the things that you're looking to do? And keep that list, because there are going to be days where you're going to be heading off into directions that uh, maybe aren't the best for you, or you're finding yourself frustrated, or finding yourself busy on other things, and you need that to remind you to be grounded back to this is what I went into education for. And I would always say to them too, if you find that at your current location, you're not able or finding joy in doing those things, that's a good opportunity to go to God and say, all right, is this where I'm supposed to be? Is it time for me to be looking for something else? And just kind of, reset and get back to that base from which to be able to grow. And I would think that that's probably similar or something that would be helpful too with a pastor, with a DCE, and with some of these other roles that we have within the church in terms of encouraging them to also seek out reasons why, again, they're in the places where they need to be, or for somebody who's considering or went a different route back in the day. I always felt God calling me to be a pastor, but I decided to go this route instead, but that calling never quite went away. And so now I'm thinking of becoming a deacon or actually going back into SMP, etc. Anyway,
That's
uh,
happening, especially with pastors, but it's starting to kind of show up, especially with the DCE. I know that Concordia St. Paul is working on growing their program that way, and so there were a couple of people who went through that program recently who never thought they'd become a DCE, but are working in that same way. So, little bit by little bit. When we get the template for the districts, how they can perhaps set up a program like that. I'll just throw this out to you. Maybe you could then contact the district ed execs and find out how you guys can have a little tagline on there for specific for special needs
absolutely.
teachers. Because I think that sometimes we don't grow that as much as we could. So we should talk more about that sometime.
Absolutely. Before we took the break, we were starting to talk a little bit about Confidex and some of the reporting you were doing there with
Right.
that group. I feel like we didn't complete some of the thoughts on that, so I'm going to throw it back out there. Uh,
Sure.
Anything more that you wanted to share from that?
Yeah, we're when I think back to the start for me in June of or July of 22, I never could have envisioned just the various places that we're involved in. There's 24 districts out of our 35 that have some kind of a set apart to serve pilot project going on.
Excellent.
We've got, whether that be with, a few individuals from that district or larger like this district ad campaign. But that's how we're able, by partnering with the districts, we're getting out into the church. It's not just something that's staying, locally in the St. Louis area or, a few metro areas where, or even just, our upper Midwest. Hey, the starting point of Lutheran schools and all that. No, this is all over the place there. District presidents, their personnel, they partner with us, and this partnering shows up in just about every area of Synod, we try to keep contact with people and say, we're here to help. And that's a key point. Um, while certainly, if I have the opportunity to talk to a young person, I will. It's the people who are out in the districts doing the day-to-day relationship work that really make that difference, whether finding somebody to think whether that vocation should be called to be one of the eight vocations there. So our work is how do we help the districts? How do we help schools, individuals in that? And that's what the way all of our resources are set up as well. Um, We've determined that each district should try to have its own set apart to serve group or focus or team or something like that, because they're going to know best in their district
Sure.
what are the things that should be done. Can we put an emphasis on the district junior high youth gathering? I mean, are there some things that we can do like they were doing up in Minnesota South with talking to potential teachers? How are we going to make sure that works? So that's been something that we've put a focus on is getting districts to have their own, and we have some pilot teams working on what that looks like. Pastor Bonnick especially is working with the circuits. How do we help the circuits with messaging and resources so that the pastors' winkles are also talking about this? And that's a time where they get to talk about so many of the things that are part of their ministry, and sometimes it's schools and sometimes it's not, but what's happening at those winkles. So we've put together newsletters to help the circuit visitors. There's a newsletter for the district ed execs that gives them and educators information about that. We talked about colloquy. We're doing parent and youth research where we're reaching out to parents, guardians, and youth. Are our resources doing what we say they should? What else can we do? Um, Last October, we had a summit with the Concordia University system set apart to serve, and admissions and administration from each of the Concordias to talk about how can we better collaborate as a group. And that was some meeting that has not happened in years and years. Nobody could remember when the last time that they brought together presidents and admissions directors. Some were the actual admission counselors from each of the Concordias, including the seminaries and the Concordia University system. What can we do collaboratively to change this? There's one more area that's really kind of important, and it started with us, but it grew beyond Set Apart to Serve, and that's a worker wellness task force. Getting people in, being excited about the fact that there's X new teacher candidates. Concordia Seward has 300 of their students this year are church work students. So about a quarter of their students on campus are church work. That is amazing. We are thankful. But there's also when people get out into the field, how our lay people, how are the actual educational ministries or whatever, how are they helping people? And so making sure that we have good retention rates. What happens with teachers, young people who start out, and that 5 year time is kind of a important point. If they get past that 5 year time, then oftentimes they're staying longer. But if they make the decision not to stay, what is it that's happening? Well, the Synod has a worker wellness task force to look at all aspects, spiritually, mentally, socially, financially, physically. What are the things that go into a well worker? And so that is something that I'm glad that Synod has taken on quite strongly. And it was under our purview to begin with, like I said, but it's so big that it became something that Synod is now working on, and we have some interrelationship in that area there. Um, so those are like some of the big areas that are going on. For myself, what I've determined is it was so much fun early on, and I think I would see you at some of those conferences. Something like LEA, we all go to LEA, but it's more and more difficult to get to all of the teachers' conferences. So I've started zooming in with the district ed execs on their principals meetings because that way I can get and talk directly to those people who are making those decisions, making those differences in the schools. And that just started this past fall. It's going to continue on. That's something that's uh, been kind of fun for me to have the opportunity to zoom in. And there's not a lot of good things that happened during that COVID era, but learning how to do things like this and have meetings from a distance,
Yep.
we're doing better in that. I personally don't think we can teach very well with that, but we certainly can meet. And so uh, we've been blessed with adding that, and we're going to next week. As a matter of fact, I'm going to the DCE conference because again they have that every 3 years. And how can we start to have those regular meetings with you all through Zooms? And DCEs are some of those that make that difference with young people as well in being able to share with them. Um, we recently worked with Concordia Seward on a questionnaire that talked to young people who were in those 300 young people who were involved and as church work students. And one of the questions that we asked was, you know, you made this decision to go to Seward. Tell us why you did that. And some of those things are really kind of exciting to share, and I'm starting to share those there. That these are and maybe that's with the last little bit of time here. I just share what some of these young people are saying about why they made a determination, in this case, to go to Seward to become a church worker. And this person wrote, they encouraged me to go into Lutheran teaching because of its fulfillment and goodness in these bad times. And boy, that really struck home to me, especially this past week and a half there. I have family up in the Twin Cities, and so yes, in these bad times, we need to be the carrier of good news. This person wrote, they instilled in me the drive to serve God by serving those around me and helped me explore my talents to find out how I'm best suited to do so. So someone in this young person's life, probably a professional church worker, did that. This young person wrote, my teachers were the ones who showed me that I could combine my love for Jesus and teaching. They said, I didn't grow up going to Lutheran school, but the teachers were also leading Sunday school and have been my mentors. My family has also supported me in my call to church work and some of my extended family as well. But I mean, you just when you hear these stories, it kind of takes me back to, how I got into it there. This person wrote, I heard so many stories from them about how God was using them. I concluded that I wanted to be his hands and feet as well. And just one more here. It was little suggestions over time that helped me realize my calling. My Lutheran school teachers helped me to realize I wanted to teach because of the positive impact that had had on me. And so these things that these young people are saying as to how they got to the point of being church workers, that's what we at Set Apart to Serve are trying to do, is to have the people out in the field, those church workers who have that day in and day out relationship with, whether it be young people or maybe somebody that they know in their church who is looking like for a second career pastor or teacher or whatever it is. That's what makes the difference. That's what made a difference for me. I would have never thought on my own. I wasn't from a church work family. I didn't have that. I never would have thought on my own about going to a Concordia Seward to become a church worker. But it was through two pastors who put that, and the Holy Spirit working through them, put that on my heart and mind, that I can look back in way in the last century as to how the Lord was at work for me there. So.
Excellent. Love those testimonials. Those are just phenomenal to hear the Holy Spirit working in the lives of those students. And again, we all come together and pray that they'll have a successful and beneficial experience at Seward and at all of our Concordias. And then, as you had said, a successful start to their ministry wherever God places them in our work.
I can't wait to share more of these like next week, there's a whole list of them that are from DCE perspective of how DCE's got them into it there, so they can get excited about what difference they can make with the Lord working, talking with young people.
So, Glenn, you said Pastor Bonnick, yourself, you guys are like it's like a group of three who are really kind of spearheading all of this. Clearly, there's got to be more people out there who are working. So, as folks are listening to the podcast, if they're moved by the work that Set Apart to Serve is doing and want to learn more about it, want to see how they can help be part of it in some capacity, where should they go? How do they reach out and connect with you or whomever to get that information?
I think, basically the best thing to do is to take a look at our website and go to our webpage at www.lcms.org/SAS. And you can see what our materials are. You can see what the resources are. My contact information, pastor's contact information is there. You know, we often get questions. What about this? What about that? And we're glad to take time to answer them. Set up a Zoom like this and talk with them. But go to our webpage on the Synod's website and start there, and that'll help you see, oh, maybe there is a resource that we already have. I mean, one of the interesting resources we have is we do keep an update on what the programs are at each of the Concordias, and what the costs are, who to contact. A special person at each Concordia is there, so they've got that information. But that's a starting point for that kind of data. But there's other resources that we've been piling on. How to talk to a young person. Some people would love to, but they want to know how to do that. And so there's some basics there. There's all kinds of resources. So, but my email address, glenn.rollins@lcms.org is also there. And I would love to talk to anybody about if they have questions or need help or are looking for resources.
Glenn, I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. Definitely appreciate the work that you're doing. I was sad when I heard that you were going to be leaving the principalship, just because I've always enjoyed good relationships with
Yep.
all of our principals, but over the years had a chance to get to know you and work with you very well. But I was excited that the Spirit was moving you in that capacity, knowing that the skills and the gifts that you had would benefit a lot more people within Synod in that capacity. And I'm thankful for the work that you, Pastor Bonnick, are doing, everyone's doing there in this capacity. And keep up the good work and be encouraged that there's many others of us out here who are doing our part to try as well to maintain this great gift of Lutheran education
Right.
that God has given us.
I think just what you said, there's a lot of you out there, and I think we needed to be kind of encouraged and activated and get a little bit more excited about it to see what happens when we do this together. That's been exciting for me, taking, like we've talked about, the years of experience and the different ways that the Lord has helped me. How can we help each other that way? That's been exciting, and I feel very blessed.
Excellent. Again, thank you again for your time and blessings on your work. Thank you to everybody listening in for the work that you are doing to help to build the kingdom and to educate our students. Until next time, this is Richard Schumacher. Thank you for listening to the Lutheran Education Podcast, brought to you by Lutheran Special Education Ministries.
Thank you for listening. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. For more information about LSEM, go to our website at luthsped.org. You can follow us on X by going to www.x.com/LSEM1873 or on Facebook at facebook.com/LSEM1873. If you're on Instagram, you can find us by going to @LSEM1873. We'll meet you again in 2 weeks for the Lutheran Education Podcast. Did you enjoy today's podcast? Want to help get the word out? Please leave us a review on the app you're using to listen today.